All right, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to now begin with our special meeting of the Phoenix City Council. We scheduled a special meeting for issues relative to our labor organizations and proposed contracts and public hearings relative to those agreements. Since this is a special meeting, I guess the city clerk has to officially call the roll for this meeting.
And read the 24-hour paragraph.
Please do so.
Councilman DeCiccio.
Here.
Councilwoman Gallego.
Here.
Councilman Gates.
Here.
Councilman Nowakowski.
Here.
Councilwoman Pastor.
Here.
Councilman Valenzuela.
Here.
Councilwoman Williams.
Here.
Vice Mayor Waring. Mayor Stanton.
Here. The first items for this special hearing will be a hearing relative to the proposed MOU between the City of Phoenix and ASME Local 2960. So I'll first do the public hearing on that, and then we'll have a motion. Before we do that, the city clerk needs to read the 24-hour paragraph.
The titles of the following ordinance and resolution numbers on the agenda were available to the public at least 24 hours prior to this council meeting and therefore may be read by title or agenda item only. Resolutions number 21224 through 21228.
Thank you very much. So now we'll begin with item S1, which is the public hearing on the proposed MOU between the City of Phoenix and ASME Local 2960, which is Unit 3. I will now open the public hearing. Are there cards on that item? Okay. Let's see. Frank Petrolio, did you wish to go first on that item?
Mayor, before Frank gets up, would you mind if I interrupt you just a little bit, Frank? I'm going to eventually ask for a continuance here, and let me explain why. And if the council would be willing to indulge, and Frank, if you don't mind, would you mind if I had the floor just for a second? We still don't have all the right numbers in place. I have asked repeatedly for several weeks now to get a valuation on 104 vacant positions that are being funded within this budget. 104 vacant ones. Now, we don't know if some of them are good, bad. We don't know any of that until we get a listing of who they are and what the valuations are. The other is Councilman Gates yesterday came up with recommendations of about $4 million in potential savings that were non-strategic in areas that he thought that we might be able to save some money. I've identified $5.4 million in monies that are spent on lobbying, association dues, travel, dining, all those things. So I think what I would like to do, and I'm going to ask this of staff and see if there's a council. It's unprecedented that this city would actually impose a mandate on the police. And we can go into the reasons why, and I think everyone understands that when we're so short and we have issues already with morale and the amount of service that we're getting in the public right now because of the shortage there, without getting a really good grip on how much money we have on the table right now. So I'm eventually going to be asking for this continuance, and I'd like to see what the labor groups would think of that. But I think that there is a lot of money on the table right now that we should be, and that has not been put out to the public. And we need to know what those dollars are. We just need to. I mean, right off the bat, 104 positions should be worth at least $8 million. And we need to know what those positions are, whether they're valuable, non-valuable, and they're vacant. They're vacant, and we don't know how long that they've been vacant. We've been asking for this information. So I think there should be a very transparent way of putting all the things on the table and then get staff to go back out there and start discussing with the labor groups to figure out what we can and can't do. I think it's a reasonable approach before we start imposing these mandates down on people without knowing what it is we're doing first. So that's where I'm going to go, Mayor.
Thank you very much. So, Councilman DeCiccio, is that a motion for continuance of this item?
Yeah. Can I put it out now? Am I allowed to do that during the public hearing? I thought I had to wait.
You want to make a motion for continuance now?
Yeah, I'd love to. Motion to continue until May 13th. We
have a second on a motion to...
And Mayor, I want to add to that continuance, if you don't mind. I want staff to come back with hard numbers on those 104 vacant positions. I want them to sit down with all the labor groups to go through each of those positions one by one to see which ones are needed, which ones aren't. I want staff to come back with a plan to sell off vacant properties, unused city properties to cover our one-time expenses that we have budgeted in this budget. I believe we have close to $16 million in one-time expenses in this budget. That's where you have one-time sale of property to cover those one-time expenses. The other thing I want to do is I want them to evaluate Councilman Gates's proposal of the $4 million that he found in savings, and I want staff to look at areas what I call to be non-strategic functions at the City of Phoenix, which are your lobbying bills, your public relations, your travel, and see if we can cut those areas that are non-essential, starting with contracts outside of the City of Phoenix so it doesn't impact our city employees. And get this, this is where the City of Phoenix politicians, myself and others up here, should be lobbying the legislature. We shouldn't have to hire people on the outside. That's what our job is. So we should be out there doing that kind of work instead of paying others to do that and use that money to fund police and other services in the city. So I want to get a good idea of how much money we really have out there and done in a transparent way. Sit down with the groups, come back to us on May 13th. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so the councilman has made a motion to continue the proposed MOU between the City of Phoenix and ASME Local 2960 Unit 3. We have a motion. We have a
Add them all in there? All of them.
Do you want to include all of them?
Yeah, include all of them.
Okay, so he wants to do all of them at this time. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're going to have to do, I guess, a roll call on this item, please. Roll
Mayor,
call. Oh, please.
I'd like to hear from the union representatives on what they think about that first.
Yeah, let them.
If we can have one.
Have each of them come up.
Okay, so go ahead, Councilwoman, please.
I'd also like to hear from the city manager because I'm very concerned. We have timeframes that we have to make sure that we meet the deadlines. And, you know, I also want to say to staff, I know you have negotiated with good faith. The unions have negotiated with good faith. We've worked hard on the budget, and we went out to the public repeatedly. And I just think it's late in the game, and I just hope we're not playing politics with something that's too important to the city and to these employees.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. City Manager, your position on this issue. By the way, it's a procedural motion, so we can, at a later time, even if we vote this down now, decide to take that up at a later time as well. But go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So the ordinance requires an action no later than May 13th. This is the last scheduled meeting before that time. We are also in the final, on the final stretch of putting the budget together, and so the time is very short for us to get that done. I think we have negotiated in good faith with all of our unions. We do have agreements with 3 of the 4 remaining unions, and so staff would be very pleased to have this item heard today so that we can move forward with the budget process. Okay, and then obviously as people come up and testify on any issue, they can address also the issue of support or non-support for a continuance. But Vice Mayor, please.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I appreciate Councilman DeCicio's motion. I'm prepared to vote no on the contracts today, so we can do that or we can make a continuance. But I will say, as terms of the time element, if this seems like it's something that was just brought up now, a lot of the issues that he's mentioning, we've been talking about, or I've been talking about at least for 2 years. So, and it doesn't seem to change, and we spend money, I think, a little frivolously around here. And now I feel badly this particular year. It's the employees who are going to take a hit because of the mismanagement at upper levels, including this council. So it's not like some of the concerns that I've had, some of the things that we specifically addressed last week, some of the dollar figures we put to those concerns, it's not as if this is new news. And that's very frustrating to me. So I guess we'll see what happens with this vote.
Mayor?
All right, thank you very much. Councilman, do you have a short comment? And then we'll
I do, Mayor, and thank you for being agreeable on this too. Councilman Gates and Councilman Waring and myself and others on this council have been asking for years to put a plan in place to sell off those one-time properties. years, a year and a half, and I've been asking for information on these 104 vacant positions for how many weeks now? Repeatedly asking for what the value of those are. They're vacant positions, what they are, what they cover, how long they've been vacant. At the very least, we should have all that information before we make a decision, and it should be done in a transparent way. We've also come up with some ideas of areas for cost savings. Why not put that all on the table? And you know what? And if the council has to work a little harder to get through to May 13th, and that, so be it. We can all make time adjustments to till May 13th to be here. And I think that not only the public deserves all this information, but so do our employees. I think everybody deserves to have the information in front of them, and we don't have it right now. And it's not anyone else's fault for not having this. It's not that we haven't asked for it. It's not that we haven't asked to have this thing pushed forward. So be it then. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. So the motion is to continue all of these items this evening. There has been a second. Roll call.
To hear from others to see if they agree.
No,
with it?
I indicated that anybody wants to, this is a procedural motion, we can do it later as well, but they can testify to that as the evening goes on, which is perfectly appropriate form of testimony. Roll call.
Mayor, I like to call one of the union members up here because I can't make this vote without hearing from those representatives how they feel on it. This motion was just thrown at us, and I'm not sure if they're in favor of it, they're opposed to it, and I'm not even sure where I'm at right now with it. I'd like to have a conversation or a discussion before voting on it.
Okay, again, this may not be the final continuance vote this evening. There'll be plenty of time to do other ones as the issue comes up. If issues come up that people want to take the time to do more, that's perfectly fine. So each of the either leaders of the employee organizations or anyone else who wants to come up and testify on the issue of continuance, they will have a full and fair opportunity to do so.
The mayor
Roll
rushing
call.
the vote, I'm sorry, rushing
Also,
this vote without hearing what they have to say, whether they want it or not.
I'm sure they're going to testify to that issue when they have the opportunity. There's going to be plenty of testimony here tonight, I'm sure. Roll call.
CCO.
No. I mean, yes. I'm sorry. Yes for the continuance. Sorry. Shaking my head.
Gallego. No. Gates. Yes. Nowakowski.
Mayor, I'd like to abstain from this vote because I'm not really sure what we're voting on yet.
Pastor.
No.
Valenzuela.
No.
Williams.
No.
Waring. Yes. Mayor Stanton.
No. So the motion fails on a 5-3-1 vote for legal purposes, and abstention counts as a yes vote. I'm going to now hand the floor over to Frank Petrolio, who is president of AFSCME Local 2960, Unit 3, to provide up to 2 minutes of testimony on this item.
Should be a second card.
I apologize. You are correct. Up to 4 minutes. Mr. Petrolio.
Mayor, Council, this has been one of the most difficult contract negotiations in the history of our fair city. But the difficulties we face now go well beyond this contract negotiation. These last few years, you have seen worker rights destroyed, benefits stripped, city services threatened, pay taken away, and an exodus of talented city workers. There have been 3 main groups involved, however: the perpetrators, the beneficiaries, and the victims of this tragedy. The perpetrators range from management and their inability to properly balance the books of this city, to the politicians whose ambitions blind them from helping the working class. From extremist institutions whose whole purpose is to demonize public service, to out-of-state dark money whose goal is to control and manipulate the will of the citizens. The beneficiaries are few, but clearly the ones making money and gaining power from all this are the lawyers and the consultants. No offense to some of the lawyers on our side. These groups are being paid millions in endless fights simply to justify bad decision-making policies. The victims, however, these are the ones most often forgotten. They're the citizens of our city who have been forced to witness a debacle of confusion and to fight just to keep basic services that they need and want. The other victims are the employees whose sacrifices of pay, rights, and benefits continue to plummet, even as they continue to be used as scapegoats by the perpetrators for their own selfish agendas. When will this end? When will the city rise up and show respect to both the citizens and the employees, not pit them against one another? It's now 31 days of furlough for my members. It's now increased taxes to our citizens. The city needs to stop playing the game of battleship with the citizens on one side and the employees on the other, each trying to sink each other's battleship. This council, this city, all of us need to step up, settle the seas, and get the ship in order.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Petrolio,
Mayor, I have a question.
you may ask a question. Mr. Petrolio, I just, for the record, the card indicates you are in favor of the proposed MOU at the end of the day.
Correct. It's between a bad situation and a worse situation. So yes, we're in favor of the
Thank you
contract.
very much. I think Councilman Nowakowski has a question for you.
Now, Frank, your opinion on the continuance?
I'm just not sure what purpose it would. I mean, it'd be great if this money was there, but we need to actually see it. And sometimes, and I have to be honest, I wish I could trust you, Sal, more, and maybe I'd be in favor of it, but when there's no trust there and you're always thinking there's ulterior motives, I tend to be against it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Sal Rivera, did you wish to testify in this item?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Sal Rivera. I'm a longtime citizen of Phoenix, born and raised here. I don't represent anybody. I am a lawyer, so whoever said bad things about lawyers, we're not all that bad. And I heard it, yes, you are. I'm just here on behalf of the city employees, the City of Phoenix employees who work so hard for our city. Certainly our city is facing its fair share of challenges, and these are tough times, and your job is very difficult. But we can't keep doing this on the backs of city employees. For all the good things that happen in our city, it's city employees who do it, and it's across the board. And I just hear too much in the media how it's city employees are doing bad things and we shouldn't be paying them more and the kinds of things. Certainly there's a need for prudent government, which we all support, but let's do what we can to support our city employees, and I just wanted to put in my little 2 cents on that as a private citizen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Rivera. Pat Vint, did you wish to testify in this item? You have up to 2 minutes.
Yes, I do want to comment on this problem you've got, and it should be no problem at all. We have a chain of command here that they have the public on the top, but they don't tie it to anything. We're just out there and getting picked on every time. And this should be the easiest thing that you ever did in your life. When you were born, when I was born, we were all born equal. Now, why do we have to decide that the union is more important than the non-union? That's not right. Why do we have to make a decision that we're going to hurt the public? Because that's who's going to get hurt. I brought some. The North Central News wrote a nice article this month, and I want to have somebody pass that out to you. And also this public thing here, why the public doesn't count anything. Just do it very simple. Everybody takes a cut when times are tough. Everybody gets a raise when times are good. That's simple. You don't have to pit citizens against the police, citizens against the fire department, citizens against 14,000 city employees. That's not right. We're all equal. If things are bad, let's all take a hit. If things are good, that's all. But you see, that's what unions do. When things are good, they strike. They say, well, we can't afford not to have workers, so we're going to give them what the hell ever they want. But then when things go bad, they forget that. They want it anyway. Valenzuela over there and and Mike Johnson, both city employees, fire department, city police,
Thank you,
they
Mr.
think that the money grows on trees.
Mr. Finner, you can finish the
Valenzuela,
point.
he-
We have many speakers to get to, so if you can finish the point. You've had your 2 minutes, please.
Wait, say that again.
Could you finish the point, please? And then we've got to move on to different speakers.
Well, certainly I want to finish the point, but are you going to listen? Sal DeCiccio is probably the smartest person here. And then Jim, see, they don't think so because he wants to be fair to everybody.
All right, thank you very much,
And
Mr.
then
Finn.
Jim Waring, and now my friend Bill Gates is coming around.
Thank you. Mr. Pierce, Dr. Michael Pierce is the next speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. Vint. Followed by Diane Barker. Followed by Luisa Pedraza. Dr. Pierce, thank you for coming.
Okay. H.L. Mencken was the sage of Baltimore in the 1920s, had a really good observation of politicians. He said that politicians limit their exercise to the following: jumping to conclusions, running up bills, stretching the truth, bending over backwards, lying down on the job, sidestepping responsibility, and pushing their luck. Now, I'm of mixed feelings on this business of a continuance. Part of me says I think it's a good idea that finally I see some action on the part of the city council to save some money. And I can't see why by the 13th of May that this council go into overdrive and do what they should have been doing all year and make those savings and put actual money that can be saved and come with a figure, because our employees, the city workers, deserve the best that you can offer. Now, if there's going to be suffering here, then I'm suggesting that you all take a 10% pay cut. Yes, a 10% pay cut, because you are the stewards, and you should have seen this coming, and you failed to see this coming. Now, you're going to respond to me, oh, we can't take a pay cut because it's statutory limit. Well, I've done research. You can too. You can voluntarily take a pay cut. And not only take a pay cut of 10% because you need a penalty for what you've done to the city, but it may give you an incentive to come up with a solution. Go for it.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Ms. Barker, you're next, followed by Luisa Pedraza, followed by Sandra Long.
Yeah, Mayor Stanton and council, and my councilman Nowakowski, District 7. My name is Diane Barker, and I did go into the clerk's office and I read these MOUs, and the only ones that hadn't come to agreement at the time I was there was Unit 4 plea. From my understanding of this, is what we're trying to do is to balance the monies in the general fund of $29.3 million. And our management found a way by doing that, by getting the unions to make the second year reduction to compensation, the concession of 1.6% in 2014-15, and then the next year 0.09. And then the services, which people so much didn't want to lose, out in the public with the pools and the community service and so forth, would be restored. So, you know, I was still thinking, okay, I want to hear what plea has to say. But where I'm coming now is it seems like the unions have decided to go do this and to help the city move forward. However, after listening to our Councilman DeCiccio, and I've been a big believer in creating value with getting our land moved. I see adaptive reuse. The Monroe Hotel is a good idea. We can bring in $17 million from that. That was put off of the agenda today. But there are other things that we can do. I like the idea that we look in to see about these vacancies. I don't know whether those are just unfunded ones, whether that would bring us anything, Sal, or not. But why can't we, at the time, table this and in an emergency meeting soon, come back after we have the information Mr. DeCiccio asked for, because we don't have to have a balanced budget before July. So why can't we get the information we need to make this a judgment?
Thank you, Ms. Barker. Ms. Pedraza is next, followed by Sandra Long, and some people have donated time to Sandra Long, followed by Deborah Novak-Scott. Ms. Pedraza, good to see you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. In the past, the City of Phoenix has been a team. Our jobs have been to protect the citizens and provide excellent service. Each of us has a job to do, like the links in a chain. We need every employee to do their job well in order to keep the chain strong. Police officers and firefighters are on the front lines, but they also need other employees to complete their jobs. The 911 dispatchers who take the calls for service and relay the information so that officers and firefighters can respond and be safe. The radio technicians who make sure the communications equipment works when they call for help. The detention officers who handle booking of prisoners so that officers can go back to the street. Fire prevention inspectors, ensuring that our buildings are safe. Inspectors to prevent blight in our neighborhoods and trash in our alleys. Tax collectors to bring in revenue due to the city. This is just a small example of how we are all intertwined. The employees have always been there. The past 4 years have been very challenging. With the loss of staff and resources, everyone has had to work much harder with fewer resources. This has put a strain on all of our employees. It has tested the dedication and loyalty of our employees to the citizens of Phoenix and the city as an organization. Not one person, including myself, wanted to take concessions. The alternative was to let seniors, children, and families suffer. And nearly 250 workers would lose their jobs. Not vacant positions. These are real filled bodies in jobs at the city. The vast majority of proposed job cuts come from our unit. I am proud to say the employees did not let this happen. Our negotiations was very contentious and lasted many hours. Much to my dismay, managers and department directors were canceling labor management meetings and refusing to meet. This is not the way a well-run city operates. Now it's time to start communicating again and get back to the goal of best-run city. I ask the council to approve our agreement with the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pedraza. I appreciate your time and leadership. The next speaker will be...
Mayor, I have a question for...
Please, Councilman Nowakowski, you have a question for Ms. Pedraza?
Yes.
Please, Ms. Pedraza. Councilman Nowakowski has a question for you.
Concern I have is that you mentioned about canceling meetings. What meetings were canceled, and why were they canceled?
Well, one of them was canceled until our contracts were renewed, so I can only take from that they weren't meeting with us until we had a new contract. And the other one, my understanding was that they were fearful of my guess was the Cheatham-Gordon decision. So it's just been dysfunction in the city since January mostly.
May I ask City Manager, was there meetings canceled because of fear of a lawsuit?
Mayor, I'm not aware of the meeting she's referring to. Mayor, Councilman Nowakowski, I'm not aware of the meeting she's referring to, but we'll be happy to talk with her and figure out what's going on. We should honor our meetings.
Thank you.
Sandra Long is the next speaker. Thank you, Ms. Pedraza. Sandra Long is the next speaker, and you have one individual who has donated her time to you, so you'll have up to 4 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, council members. My name is Sandra Long, and I have 20 years service with the City of Phoenix. It appears the city manager and council want to readily acquire available funds to put towards the deficit. So the easiest place to get it is from the city employee negotiated wages. Because, as you know, until recently, you also wanted to get the funds by cuts badly needed city services to our citizens, cuts to parks, senior citizens, pools, libraries, just like you cut and destroyed the Meals on Wheels provided to our senior citizens. You cut those who had no hand in the mismanagement of city spending on unnecessary projects, outsourcing, contracting out when we have the infrastructure to do the jobs ourselves. We now pay big money to contractors for jobs we used to do ourselves, like overseeing and monitoring the gas wells at the landfill and keeping them in compliance. You cut from those who can't fight back to stop what you're doing dead in its tracks. You make us go through this long process of hearings and courts and legal expenses, administrative expenses, in order to proceed with the city manager's plan on taxpayer dollars. We, city workers, are here on our own time. We're not spending taxpayer money, but you all are. If all your wages were added up in this entire battle of balancing the budget, times all your wages, I wonder how much that would amount to, and that could have been put towards the deficit. We should be working on a win-win outcome, not a win-win-lose outcome. At this point, I want all the City of Phoenix residents and workers to know this. There are some council members who demonize the city workers in an attempt to pit middle class against middle class and watch us dog eat dog and have us destroy each other so that all you have is the haves and the have-nots. Unions fight for the betterment of the middle class, so you can have a little bit better life as you get older, and so your children can have a little bit more than what you had. So I don't understand what's so bad about that. But because unions won't be pushed around and go belly up, they fight to keep what was promised and negotiated. So I say this to the residents. Did you hear what your police officer had to say? They just told you that due to wage cuts and staffing shortages, this means that this process is on the path of becoming alarmingly unsafe to you and themselves, so these positions should be filled. Not only does your police department or your fire department and all other departments are being spread too thin to such a growing metropolis as Phoenix, it's not shrinking, it's growing. So if you look around you, there's buildings going up, houses being built, and people are spending more money. And with growth comes increase, as it happens every year. You can't expect to pay 1960 prices in 2014 and then complain about having to pay a little more. Things just cost more. Did you hear your city workers? They just told you that you have a flood of highly experienced, trained city workers who are about to leave. Workers who have been with the city of Phoenix here for years and would rather work and give service to the people of Phoenix than retire. That's a commitment. That's how important you are. These workers have told you there's no accountability for department spending, upper management raises, spending on special projects that can wait, outsourcing and contracting out when we have the infrastructure to do the job. All this information is coming out of the mouths of the workers who work inside. What better source can you have from what's really going on internally? Just because some city officials are elected does not mean that they know what's best for you. You know what's best for you. And the city workers know exactly what you expect when it comes to servicing the community. I respect the opinion of the police department is a different class, and I'm grateful for their bravery that they serve and protect. But the rest of us also do that. Public Works, just as many departments, are out in the field addressing violations and other issues in the community to keep your residents safe. Yes, we are here to serve and protect too, but we do it without a gun. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next is Deborah Novak-Scott, and then followed by Shelley Mirabito, followed by Dory Levy.
Mayor and City Council, my name is Deborah Novak-Scott. I'm a 30-year City of Phoenix employee. I'm also the Vice President of Local 2960, and this is my 11th contract negotiations with the city. We began negotiations earlier this year, January 10th. Members of AFSCME Local 2960 agreed to take economic concessions to save services to the citizens of Phoenix. When the trial budget came out, there were over 200 positions in Unit 3 that were on the chopping block. As Louisa said, these were people filling a job. These were not vacant positions. There was a body in those jobs. These were services to the citizens of Phoenix. Among the jobs that were on the cut list were those that provide vital services to the city of Phoenix, our fire prevention unit, the recreation centers, the senior centers, the pools, the police detention officers that actually free up the sworn police officers to go and do their work on the streets, along with other departments in the city. We had to go to fact-finding because we could not come up with any kind of middle ground with the city economically. During the fact-finding hearing, the Deputy Finance Director, Sean Kindle, testified that in June 2013, he knew the city was in a good position, but he saw negative trending. He likened it to that the city was approaching a cliff. He also testified there was an intentional drawdown of the general fund balance and that revenues didn't cover our expenses. He said that he shared his views with others in the city, yet 4 months later, in October 2013, the former city manager, David Cavazos, and the former finance director, Jeff DeWitt, sat before this city council. They said that if the food tax was cut in half, vital services wouldn't be impacted. Obviously, that wasn't true. Within a few months, the trial budget's issued with so many cuts to city services that it's affecting the most vulnerable in our community. I know some members of the city council would still vote against our contract even if we agreed to cut our wages in half. And we gave up benefits. For some, it's never enough. Our unit has taken concessions since 2010. As we pointed out in fact-finding, our income has not kept up with the Consumer Price Index. And for those who think that the merit and longevity are automatic, they are not. You have to meet performance standards in order to achieve them, and the only way you're getting longevity or productivity enhancement, you top out at 29 years of service. That's a lot of time to the citizens of Phoenix. I would like the City Council to pledge as a body to ask its members to stop maligning and unfairly criticizing our employees. No one in Unit 3 is getting rich doing this job. Some are getting paid as little as $22,000 a year. We're not making $100,000. Our employees just continue to do more with less day in and day out, and with this new contract, we will do so with less pay and continue to service the citizens of Phoenix.
Thank you very much, Ms. Novak-Scott. Shelley Mirabito is next, followed by Dory Levy, followed by Mr. Leonard Clark.
Good afternoon. My name is Shelley Mirabito, and I've lived in Phoenix all of my life. I've also been a member of the Phoenix Fire Department for over 12 years. I would also like to add that I am a taxpayer like the rest of the city employees of Phoenix. If I could get you to do one thing, if you could close your eyes and picture your child that you just found floating in a pool. You call 911, but unfortunately, due to the extreme cuts that you've been making to safety, the response time to save your child has now gone up. Think about what you're feeling like watching your child suffer, or even worse, dying in your arms, because you have chosen to cut the money and employees from police and fire. Only you have yourself to blame. Making any more cuts from fire and police would be the worst decision that you could ever make. I am asking that you take a step back before you make any more harsh cuts to our pay and benefits. Think about what we have done as city employees for the past 5 years. We all deserve better than what we've been giving to work with. You will not find any harder working or more dedicated employees than the ones that work for this city. And Councilman DeCiccio, I would be more than happy to give you a copy of my paycheck. I do not make $100,000, nor will I ever see that on my paycheck. So if I could ask you to please stop spreading the lies that all the city employees make $100,000 a year, we'd really appreciate it. Well, thank you.
If you could. Look, if we could come back.
Councilman, did you have a short response to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. If we could, because you addressed it directly. You, and if you were talking about fire, the compensation for fire is going to go up from $137,293 to $143,151 per person with this new contract. And this is a city council report that I've asked for because I always wanted to know where the compensation numbers were. So that those numbers are actually going to go up with this contract by $6,000 a year per person on average.
Okay, is that for also secretaries?
Oh, you said fire. I don't know.
I do work for Phoenix Fire, but I'm a secretary.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. I just answered. Okay. What unit are you in, and I'll tell you which one it is.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mirabito,
Cover
for your
that, too.
testimony. The next speaker will be Dory Levy, followed by Mr. Leonard Clark.
Mayor Stanton, members of the City Council, my name's Dory Levy. I work in police communications as a 911 operator and police dispatcher. I've worked for the City of Phoenix for 12 years and only have 8 years until I will be eligible for retirement. I'm 50 years old, and I feel that it's too late for me to go back into the job market in search of a job with a pension plan that will pay for a fair day's work and be able to accrue enough time to have a livable retirement. I feel that my union, AFSCME 2960, was backed into a corner and was told if they did not agree to this contract full of concessions, that 300 positions would be cut and people would lose their jobs. Merit increases for those who have not yet reached the top level of pay for their position would be frozen, and our performance enhancement pay would also be frozen, along with furlough days that would have to be taken on city holidays, and the city would not cover any future increases in our health and dental plans. The concessions agreed to will amount to another $150 of lost pay for me monthly. That's $1,800 a year. I thought I was living the American dream, but it's now becoming a nightmare. The ability for me to be able to pay my mortgage is now going to be in jeopardy. I also have coworkers who have already lost their homes due to previous concessions. I hope that the council will be more financially responsible in the coming years when it comes to approving increases for city management, especially when those increases amount to more than each employee makes in a year. I also hope that city management will be better at managing the city's money and be able to accurately calculate if the city has a surplus or deficit and not have to lay the burden of balancing the budget on the backs of the employees again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.